Hello parents, welcome to Mindful Monday. So we're going to be kind of extending from last week a couple tips about how to really be able to sit with painful or uncomfortable emotions and how to teach this to your kids, which I think is super helpful. So last week we started by helping you to do it for yourself, and now we're going to talk about how you're going to teach your kids how to do this. I'm going to borrow some of this information from Dr. Karen Young. She had some really helpful tips, so I'm going to jump in and tell you what those are. So the big piece that we're going to start with is helping children understand where these big emotions come from and why it's useful to understand emotions in the first place. So we want to validate the fact that they're having an emotion. So when your friend Timmy asks to borrow a toy from you and you really don't want to hand it over and he takes it, it makes you really angry. That's an example of setting the tone of where do emotions come from in the first place and helping them to identify an emotion. When your sister keeps teasing you and you don't like that they're teasing you, you feel really hurt in the moment, and then it makes you sad. Explaining where that emotion is coming from. Then you can extend it to, and then you hit her because you were sad, and then you got angry at her because she wouldn't stop. It's an example of continuing to put these emotions into context. We can validate. Of course you would feel sad and hurt when somebody's teasing you and you're asking them to stop and they don't, right? That makes a lot of sense. And it's not okay to hit other people. So let's talk about what else we can do, right? So one example of how to do this is, maybe we can teach them a couple skills. So one skill that Dr. Young talked about, which I found really interesting, was the hot cocoa technique. So starting with, so when your sister keeps teasing you and you get really angry at her because you're hurt, so grab your hands together as if you're holding a hot mug of hot cocoa, and you're going to breathe in that aroma of the hot cocoa. It smells really good and chocolatey, right? And then you're going to exhale, kind of taking in the warmth of the mug, right? So inhaling the hot chocolate and exhaling to let go and continue focusing on that deep breath, which is really important. Another way to do this, to help them or give them skills to be able to sit with an uncomfortable emotion, is something she calls a figure 8. So you can draw with your finger either in the air or on your hand or on your arm or on your belly or maybe on like a stuffed animal or the couch next to you, whatever it is that you have. On the up loop, you're going to count to 3 while you're breathing in. So 1, 2, 3, inhale. You're going to take a pause in the center of the 8, and then you're going to do 1, 2, 3, exhaling. Okay, let's try that with me. Inhale, 1, 2, 3, and then you pause in the center. Exhaling, 1, 2, 3. So you would actually show them how to do the number 8 with their finger and continuing to practice this breathing that we've been focusing so much on our Mindful Monday videos. So another big piece to teaching kids how to really self-regulate, right? It has to start with us. So how we help ourselves to regulate emotions when, let's say, our kids are triggering us or kind of the prompting event to when we're starting to get agitated and frustrated, especially we're tired, it's like the end of the week, you're done with it, or it's the start of the week and you're already done with it. What we can do is to really check our expectations, right? So is the expectation that your 5-year-old know how to immediately calm themselves down, kind of get back to what they were doing and just like stop fighting with their sibling and just brush off the situation? Most likely not, right? It's not realistic. Is it likely that your teenager who's maybe going through some hormonal changes or who is having a hard time at school with friends to be able to just not be kind of irritable or snappy that day? maybe it's what we're working toward, but it doesn't mean that you're already there. And so working on those expectations is going to be helpful for you to kind of remind yourself, like, this isn't like a problem behavior. This isn't like a bad child. It's a behavior that we're working on and that we're going to, help them to improve, right? So they are exactly where they need to be. And we're going to help them to continue to make progress in being able to regulate their emotions, okay? So another important piece to teaching kids how to self-regulate is by what Dr. Young calls not outsourcing the job of regulating. So a lot of kids who look that they're really struggling with their emotions, they're really tantruming, they're really very upset, and they're having a hard time, you feel for them, right? Like your heart breaks a little bit when they're crying and they're breaking down in tears. And our immediate kind of gut reaction as parents is to jump in and do the work for them, unfortunately. Why? Because it's innate, right? It's like our lizard brain says your child's in danger, jump in and help out. Unfortunately, what this does is that it doesn't give the child the opportunity to learn how to do that for themselves. To be able to sit with an emotion and see that it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that I can't tolerate it. So, especially if you're practicing with your kids how to do this, we want to make sure that we're giving them the space and the time to be able to maybe implement some of the things that you've talked to them about. And so we're doing this by, continuing to model for them how we regulate. So they're going to borrow your prefrontal cortex, which is what helps us to to actually regulate. It helps us to pause our emotions and be able to think of maybe more effective ways of coping with our emotions. And so how you do this is by remaining calm and kind of waiting to see how you can help, or if they even need your help, and talking through them by validating, right? Of course you seem really, anxious before you head out to school. You have a big test today. That makes sense. Or, your brother hit you, so you got really angry. That makes a lot of sense, right? And we don't hit back. So being able to stay calm even in the way that you talk in your own presence, you are teaching them how to respond to that situation. So we're going to ask you to also, at times, break down these behaviors in ways that they're like small baby steps that they can sort of digest. So if you want your child to maybe when you ask them to pick up their toys, not start throwing them and make an even bigger mess because they don't want to clean up, start by asking them to maybe take a deep breath with you. And even if they still refuse to pick up the toys, maybe walking away, and that's your big win for the day, right? So we're shifting the attention to, okay, what did they do well this time? And then to the next step, maybe the next day they take a deep breath, they're able to calm down, and maybe they pick up one toy, right? That's your win. So going about these baby steps is going to be a more effective way than you just expecting, right? For the child to be able to just, tolerate the emotion and sit with the emotion right away, when that's going to take time. It takes us time to do it, right? We're learning how to do it here. So give them some time as well. So I hope this was helpful, and that it's going to give you an opportunity to sit back with your child and help them to reflect on kind of what's going on for them, right? And what they can maybe do differently the next time to be able to start changing their behaviors one step at a time. So this is bringing in the mindfulness piece of like, what's going on, what were you feeling, what was going on with your body, your thoughts, and what can we do differently, right? So do what works. I will see you next week, and I hope that you're continuing to practice.